All right, welcome everyone. So glad you were able to join us for our webinar today on case studies of impacting business with AR. This is the last webinar in our Evangelizing AR webinar series. Today, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be sharing specific examples, tools, and programs of how our clients have used AR to impact their whole business. So typically, AR conversations can become very academic and generic, but sometimes it's easier to just dive into some case studies to hopefully spark some ideas on what's feasible to do within your own organizations. Looking at today's attendees, we're excited to see so many familiar names, and for those new names, welcome. Just wanted to do some quick introductions. My name is Christina Neal, and I'm a strategist here at Spotlight. It's my primary role to collect and curate the best ways we do AR, create a methodology off of those best practices, and then share those and teach those through a methodology to internal employees as well as clients. Also with me today is our managing partner and co-founder, Andrew Shu.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today.
Also, for those that are new, it might be helpful to just give a quick background on Spotlight for context. We are a dedicated analyst relations firm headquartered here in Kansas City. We've been in business for a little over 7 years now, and there are just over 40 of us. We have observed so many best practices with our diverse set of clients over the years, and we really wanted to use these webinars to highlight and discuss those learnings with all of you. So we have a lot of webinars on our website that can be accessed for free. So if you go to spotlightar.com, you can browse all the previous topics that may be of interest.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about using AR to impact the business, right? And what are the different ways that we do that? Just to level set a little bit, let's talk a little bit about objectives. The first and foremost, obviously, using our objective here is to use AR to positively impact business results. We'll talk a little bit about what that is. But it's a sort of a two-headed challenge that we have here. It's not only trying to impact that business, but honestly, it's about keeping the value of AR visible throughout your firm. So as we go through today's section and share these different techniques and case studies and how people have done it, most of them are trying to do both things, right? Create that positive business impact, but then also finding a way to be visible throughout your firm. When we talk about business impact, let's talk about some of the indicators that tell us that we're going in the right direction. So when we say impacting the business, on the marketing side, what we're talking about is helping them with reach metrics, right? Getting out and meeting more people that you want to, more engagement metrics, people staying longer on your thought leadership, activation metrics, people coming in a sales as marketing qualified leads. We want to use AR to do those things. On the product side, when we say impact, what we mean is bringing back that amazing piece of insight and that feedback that changes roadmap priority, something that helps us sharpen the way that we package and price, something that helps us fine-tune our go-to-market strategy, right? So make sure that we're saying the right things to the right people. On the sales side, what we're talking about is using AR to help improve our close metrics, helping get that final big deal across the finish line. It's about better sales positioning, providing points of view from the analysts in order to put us in the right light in relationship to our competitors, and more buyer insight, leveraging the analyst's insight in order to better communicate with the people that are our prospects, our most desired customers. So when we talk business impact indicators, it's pulling the levers that make the thing go in each one of these three different categories. Now, that's what we're trying to do. Let's talk about what does it mean to stay visible, and there's some best practice guidelines, right, on how do I stay valuable. The first one is we generally try to make recommendations to our clients. We have to find ways to provide consistent reminders of contribution. And what that means is, whenever possible, let's find a way to be integrated into a process. Let's find a way to maintain an artifact that's used over and over and over again. Let's find a way so that we're constantly in front of people rather than just doing one single project and going away. We need to translate the things we learn into things that are easy to use. One of the biggest flaws, or one of the biggest errors, one of the biggest traps that we run into as AR people is we have a tendency to think that everybody knows what we do, right? How to use analyst relations. We say things like, hey, look at that amazing piece of research that we were showcased in, and that's some incredible commentary that the analyst has provided for us. Well, it's my experience that sales teams, marketing, product teams, they don't know how to use the resources that we find. Wherever we want to impact the business and actually make it memorable, we have to make sure that's easy to use and put into a format that they can just immediately reference. What we also want to do is co-create our artifacts and processes with our business partners together. There's nothing quite like us trying to guess at what they want. One, we're likely to be wrong. Two, we're likely to actually not be memorable at all, right? So this idea is, hey, go to your marketing partners, your sales partners, and say, let's talk about what is the artifact that you need, what is the thing that we can do that's most valuable, and then obviously review that periodically. So those are some general practice guidelines. As we go through this, we'll hopefully show you a few examples of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to actually talk through those best practice guidelines along each one of those business impact indicator categories that Andrew just mentioned. So we're going to look at marketing, sales, and product. So first we're going to look at marketing, and we're just going to quickly talk about a few examples of how you can be visible and help the marketing organization. Now, before we jump into more advanced tactics, let's just first cover off on the things we do most often, right? So this list is probably very familiar to you. These have been proven to be effective, but they can also be isolating. So these are things like reprinting and advertising evaluation reports, hosting webinars where we bring an analyst to the table as a speaker, updating email signatures with our placement. That's a go-to favorite, but also calling attention to those analyst mentions through splash pages and blogs. So all of these efforts, they take a tremendous amount of work, and while valuable, are hard to scale and be consistent. So we should still continue to do these things if that value is there. If we haven't utilized some of these tactics before, hopefully it gives you a few ideas. But going back to Andrew's point about the need to be consistent and co-created and easy to use and implement, we really should and can expound upon this list. So let's take it a step further. Our clients have utilized these tactics to really more tightly integrate and align with marketing needs. So in most cases, marketing already has sophisticated dashboards showing the progress and results of their efforts. If we can co-create AR metrics and help them keep them updated regularly, it will bolster their ability to utilize AR and promote the success. Integrating AR with a marketing calendar, right? This is making sure that they're prepared to market the assets that we generate and to make sure that we're supporting the major announcements that they're making in the market. And if you think about it, we're talking with analysts day in and day out, and analysts give us a tremendous amount of feedback. They could give us feedback regarding market positioning and messaging, target buyer profiles, sales strategy and execution. All of these nuggets of feedback, if we don't share it, it can't be acted on. So it's incredibly important to surface any go-to-market feedback to those teams so they can make the correct adjustments. And then, depending on your subscriptions, you may be able to invite marketing leads to inquiry calls and even set up calls with analysts that would specifically benefit them. Helping marketers create those ongoing relationships with analysts they can learn from will enable a tremendous business benefit as they can align their messaging with the market needs. And lastly, aligning with the marketing calendar to better understand what messages they're currently pursuing enables us to cut out the noise and help them find analyst highlights, research, and even quotes that can provide the validation they need to make their point in thought leadership. So the key themes there really are keeping AR in front of marketing, working with them, and doing it consistently. So let's look at that last bullet we just talked about, right? We have a client that wanted to create headway in a video game industry. They wanted to author a thought leadership piece about how important a commerce solution was to the process of monetizing video games. Now, this case study is a great one because marketing co-created an ebook along with AR without costing any additional budget. Now, of course, you can commission research and pay a tremendous amount of money for an analyst firm to write a specific topic, but analysts are already writing about those market trends. We can use that to utilize as evidence for the need to act a certain way. So while commission research has its place, it can be siloed and expensive. So we can help surface market trends in an ebook to really enrich a conversation with clients and prospects.
Right. And in this particular case study, what they did was, hey, listen, this is the argument for the marketplace. I'm going to say some smart things, but then I'm going to go ahead and reference into the analyst research and say the analyst is proving my thing, right? I say it, the analysts say it, and I end up with a thought leadership piece that's more impactful in the marketplace. So let's talk about transition over from marketing over to sales and talk about what we can do there. There's a client of ours that, not surprisingly, I'm going to use them, pick on them a little bit, but many of our clients struggle with this, which is that their sales team had very little understanding of analyst relations. They don't know how to use it. There's a lot of misinformation that was going around. There's frustration regarding AR. So what they did is established a formal training process for their analyst relations for their sales folks. So as part of their sales team, enterprise sales team onboarding, in addition to doing the traditional sales training, they also did analyst relations training. It wasn't a lot of training, but it was in the process of onboarding, and it taught them how to use analyst relations almost right off the get-go. Additionally, what they did is put together a little educational piece that's set on the sales portal. The sales piece, this informational piece, had reference material like why analysts matter, right? How they can help you make or break a sale, how you can leverage them to make an argument, how you can leverage them to provide a different perspective. So giving them that education piece of what analysts do and how they can be used. Then what they also did is some usage things, right? Make or break a sale against competitors. How do I use these specific arguments? So they included some usage guides. So the internal training document set out there, they even recorded a short video that was an easy reference. So you can quickly click on it and say, hey, I can go through a self-guided tour of what is AR and how do I use it. Over on the right-hand side, they've also provided external templates for sales pitches. So just a library of reference slides that can quickly be put into sales decks that can cut and paste that talk about performance and waves, performance and magic quadrants, and quotes that matter. So just a single source, super easy to reference guide sitting out on the sales portal that can be used over and over again. We've seen more than one customer use this, and it's really a good way to stay in front. The other thing that we talk about with our clients often is this technique called an analyst validation guide. So let me talk a little bit about what that is. What ends up happening is that us as sales folks in the marketplace, right, we always have these core differentiators that we're trying to claim. So we are easy to use and adopt, and that's fantastic, right? We are trying to say this out in the marketplace. Now, as we all know, we're not the only people making this claim. So it's really fantastic if you could immediately tie the specific quote from the research to this particular claim. And obviously, there might be more than one, and the salespeople will customize on how they use it. But in this particular case, we're easy to use and adopt. Oh, by the way, the analyst at Gartner said, our solution is easy to use offering, it's robust, and it's easy for citizen developers to build applications with minimal involvement. So you're like, okay, this is the specific tie-in for the differentiator. Our clients love our tool and love us, right? So that's our claim. Go find the commentary specifically. Compared with other vendors in the Magic Quadrant, our reference customers had the highest average level of satisfaction and the second highest level of satisfaction for the overall experience with us. So the reason this guide or this one pager or this two pager is really fantastic, right? Put it in the hands of your salespeople. Don't make them do the work. Write out the differentiators that you want to make the claims to. What are you trying to argue in the market right now? What are the different proof points that you can provide? And on the other side of the equation, you know that there's skepticisms, right? It's not only the market reputation that you have, but you know your competitors are trying to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So maybe the idea is that this solution, these guys are only for the small guys, right? Go find that AR response. So IDC recognizes that the vendor is awesome for not only small, but also mid-sized and large organizations. What if we're trying to sell an AI tool and the argument is my other tools already have AI baked in? Maybe you can find that quote that says, hey, listen, there's a wide gap between the AI and machine learning capabilities that are baked into marketing clouds versus the specific AI tools that I can buy. So the validation guide, single pager or single set of slides, make it easy for them, go find it. And what you can do is keep updating and keep talking to your sales team, right? What are the claims we want to make, and what is the skepticism and FUD that our competitors are putting into the marketplace? And go find responses in the analyst research that help them overcome that.
And that validation guide serves a great purpose for those evergreen claims and differentiators your teams are selling. However, there are those time-bound events that take place, and it's incredibly important to arm your salespeople with the support they need for current events. So in this case, we had a client who landed on a Magic Quadrant in the niche quadrant. They needed to immediately get the entire team on board on how to talk about the report, the placement, how to defend against cautions and weaknesses. So with this, if you're a leader, it's not as interesting or hard to explain, but if you land in another quadrant, it can be incredibly costly to not help the sales team with which emphasis points to utilize and which deflection points to use immediately. So this was a great example of getting a FAQ document in the hands of the sales team. It covers what the report is, who's in the report, and why we landed where we did. Another aspect of sales integration can include a guide of which analysts are willing to recommend us and when we should utilize them. So in this example, the client utilized AR slides within their standard sales deck that took into account the specific needs of the prospect. So every analyst that we engage with has a varying level of understanding of our capabilities, varying levels of willingness to recommend us, and differences in who they think we best serve. So helping the sales team know who out of our analyst roster can help close the deal will enable them to name drop the right reference. So on the left is an internal guide of each analyst and when they're willing to recommend us. The example on the right is the slide that would go into the deck that would specifically be cherry-picked for the right reference for the right circumstance. So in this case, the targeting and personalization analyst is quoted from research, and instead of saying take our word for it, the sales guy would say, if you have a subscription, go ask that analyst and ask them how it would be working with us.
Right. So as you can see on the sales side, those examples are relatively, they share the similar characteristic, right? How do I stay in front of the team? There is an artifact that I maintain on an ongoing basis. I make it as digestible as possible. I work with the sales leaders to make sure that this works for them. I constantly update and ask what is working and what's not. And then I'm constantly in front of them, and hopefully it's closing deals on their behalf. I will hope that every sales person in your org that's going forward feels like they're armed with the information and almost like a shield or a set of tools or weapons from analyst relations. So let's talk about strategy and product. Let's change gears a little bit. We're changing the game up now, right? Strategy and product have a different goal. What they're trying to do is different. They're trying to go through planning. They're trying to be insightful. They're trying to take everything that you can possibly learn to do better planning and to do better strategy. So common integration tactics with product, these are things that we all know about, right? We provide product demos to the analyst for feedback prior to launch. Get a little bit more feedback from the analyst. Make sure that the analyst knows what to say to the press. Get them the details that they want. We set up inquiries on behalf of the product teams, right? Product teams come to us and say, hey, I want to do more info research around a specific persona. Maybe the marketing team wants to know whether we're using the right language, want to get a review on a product sheet. We recruit the subject matter experts to help us respond to RFIs. We all know the now tech, vendor landscapes, waves, magic quadrants. And then often what we do is we forward analyst feedback to product and sometimes leadership, right? Hey, these are the things that we found. We think they'd be useful for you. Please take a look at it. So these are the things we always do. Now, where that starts is you typically start with capturing and sharing analyst commentary, right? First and foremost, where do we keep this stuff? It's in our notes. It's in our Word documents, our Google Sheets. It is in Evernote. You just a run-on sentence, right? I'm trying to capture everything verbatim of what I found and what the analyst has said. And then what I'm trying to do is afterwards, where I have the time, I take that information, I put it into an email. I author it up, I try to find the right people, I make sure that I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. Sometimes I even try to color the commentary so that it's more digestible. And then I fire it off to the different people who need to digest it. And then on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, or whatever that might be, what you do is you summarize everything. What have we accomplished? And then what did we find out? So this is the typical process of sharing that commentary. Now, these emails that come across, we all know it's pretty hard to really impact somebody in an email. It's pretty hard to stay consistent through that email, right? That email gets buried. And then after a while, what happens is leadership comes back and says, hey, listen, I want to know what positive or negative comments do we feel that the analysts are sharing with our prospects? Do we think they're saying different things now than they were last year? Now you pause and look at that question. That's a very fair question. But if you think about it, it's also a very hard question to answer, right? There's a sentiment component in there. There's analysts and what kind of feedback that they're providing. There's a time sequence, right? So whether they're saying good or bad things. And then on top of that, so I very rarely do they say, oh, this positive or negatives. Sometimes they ask about specific things, right? What are they saying about our product, about our business? So what we found is that not surprisingly, when we get all this analyst feedback, it's not like for like. It's not one big gigantic bucket. The analyst is providing feedback on our market, do we understand it? Our business, what about our executive leadership team? Do they see too much turnover? Do they feel like we're running well? Do they feel like that we're going to be a going concern? They're providing feedback on offering. Do we have the right solution, or do we have something differentiated in the marketplace and valuable? They're providing feedback on our go-to-market, right? Are we positioning this right? Do we have the right partner ecosystem? Are we scalable enough? Are we out there really talking to the right personas? Customers, do we have the tools and capabilities necessary to understand what customers want? Are they reflecting that they are satisfied with our requirement? Or do they believe that there's a place for for them to get help? How well are they responding to what we're offering in the marketplace? So the challenge is when you get answering that question, you're not just going to answer that question based on like, hey, is it good? Is it bad? Is it good? Is it bad? And is it in each one of these categories? So this causes a big pressure on us if we're going to solve this problem. And what we had to find is that we had one of our clients is this gigantic multinational technology company, right? So we're talking about 13, 14 analyst relations pros, talking to hundreds of analysts on an ongoing basis. Everybody's discovering things. And we had to pull this back into a structured format so that when we clicked on something, we could answer this question. We wanted to be able to answer verbatim, what is the analyst feedback, right? Specifically, what words did they use? Sentiment, were they positive or cautionary about that particular piece of feedback? Who was the analyst that we talked to, and what was the firm that they were with? What date did this analyst interaction occur, and what kind of interaction was it? And did that feedback fall into a specific subcategory? And the reason why I had to go this way was because that was the only way that across all these 13, 14 analyst relations people working on different products could we aggregate all the information and bring them back, right? So we had to invent an entire atomized note-taking process. And it's probably something for you, especially for those of you who have lots of different products or want to improve the information that you're bringing back to the org, thinking about this kind of atomized note-taking process. So one thing I want to go into here is sentiment. You guys are all used to capturing verbatims, all used to capturing these other things, but maybe the sentiment's slightly different. If we can mark all the different pieces of information and feedback that we find with sentiment, then what we can do is we can get perception at a glance, right? I can take a look and say, hey, based on the totality of my business in these big categories, and your categories could be different, but based on their feedback, now I can tell, are they super positive about this, or are they negative and cautionary about this? And where they're negative and cautionary, it gives me an opportunity to prioritize some improvement. So now you can see, right? If I'm taking notes this way, if I'm tracking it this way for this specific client, this gave us an opportunity to go back to the table and say, I'm not just capturing things generically, I'm capturing specific things that we can use. So lots of stuff, right? I apologize for talking so quickly. Let's talk about some of the different things that we covered. Establish programs, don't execute projects. It's easy to fall into projects, right? I want to do something that's valuable and then I end up going away. Impacting sales, honestly, what we've learned is it takes patience, support, and repetition. My goodness, does it take patience, support, and repetition. This will always be a job that you have. Sales teams, they have a tendency to turnover. The knowledge is distributed unevenly. You have to take your time. Your analyst source findings are invaluable. I see people give this up all the time. They take the notes, they capture the things that are important, they put it into a note file, and they never resurface it. It's not consistent, it's not valuable, it's not pushed to the product team on an ongoing basis. Treat them like gold. And then finally, you have to fight for a seat at the table. I can't express this enough. If you can earn it by just being awesome, that's great. But what we found is that, Mark, you almost always have to be a little bit aggressive in order to demand an opportunity to provide your feedback. So those are just some of the thoughts that we have, and we've heard that have worked.
Absolutely. So before we close off, wanted to offer an opportunity to submit any questions you have from today's webinar. And I did see a few come through already. So if we have some time at the end, we'll cover them. If not, we can reach out via email to help answer. But now would be a great time to put them in, because what we're going to do is just cover a few announcements, and then at the end, we'll look at the time. So wanted to quickly talk about the exciting announcement that we're launching a new analyst relations platform this year. The platform is founded on best practices that we've been developing with all of our clients, as well as the learnings we've heard from all of you. So this platform, we can actually capture and measure those analyst sentiments, their perceptions of our business, and we have a place to sort out all of those nuggets of insight that they say on those calls and interactions. So currently we're in beta testing right now, but we're going to open it up to everyone this fall. So if you'd like to see a demo, you can go to our website, spotlightar.com, click on platform, and fill out a form to request a demo.
Fantastic. And then for those of you who are part of the IAR and those who are not, there is a summer party coming up. So on July 4th in central London, we are having a summer party. I'm very excited. I'm going to be heading over there to celebrate with our friends across the pond. If you happen to be over there in London on July 4th, please come and join us. We'd absolutely love to get together. For the registration link, please go to analystrelations.org. The information is front and center. Love to have you. If you are a member, please come. If you aren't a member, we'd love for you to join. And if not, come anyways. There's an opportunity for you to join us. There will also be an event on stateside in August. TBD, we're trying to figure out the final location, but we will get everybody that information as soon as we finalize it. Super excited to be part of the IAR. Love to get everybody together if possible. And then finally, for our next webinar on August 14th, we want to take a little bit slightly different tact. What we heard over and over now is then we've heard a cacophony of noise, right? Lots of people telling us that, hey, I've got some staffing challenges and recruiting challenges in AR. I'm growing my team. Can I find the right kind of talent? Is it at the right level? Is it in the right marketplaces? Sometimes I want to use third party and I can't. I want to use third party, but they don't satisfy my needs. There's all kinds of interesting questions about staffing and recruiting. We would like to take the opportunity and just invite all of you to come in and answer a quick 20-question survey about staffing and recruiting. I think that would be fantastic if we could all share with each other. Where are we struggling? Where are we succeeding? How are we trying to solve the problem? We're going to aggregate all that information. I think we're going to go ahead and open up the survey right after this webinar. I'm going to close it on July 31st. We're going to aggregate all that information, do some analysis to see if big companies are struggling with different than small companies, whether certain markets are struggling. We'll put that information together, and then what we're going to do is present it back on August 14th. So please take the survey. It would be fantastic for us to look at that data. We will share the results back, and if you have other friends in AR, please send it out as well. We want to get as much of a perspective as we can.
Great. So looking at time, it looks like we probably only have time for one question. So we'll go ahead and answer this one. Atomized note-taking is interesting. How did you come up with that with all the hundreds of notes from the various AR managers?
That's a great question. Honestly, it was born out of frustration. What was happening is we had to essentially spin up projects every time a leader came in. So product was coming in and asking a question, a leadership was asking a question, and they were asking questions that were incredibly fair but frustrating. So something like Gartner comments on pricing 2018 versus 2017. And we were going, oh my God. How am I going to find that information? I'm not going to lie. There was probably projects. People were spinning their wheels, trying to go into their memory. Certain people didn't have the discipline to take the right notes. People were like trying to look at emails that have been going out. So we, for some of our clients, had to just put our hats on and say, we can't solve it this way. So we actually started with an intern that went through and took a look at all the different notes and started categorizing them, right? The AR managers were helping out. Everybody was trying to take the notes and break them into different bite-sized chunks. They went into a spreadsheet first, and then we started figuring out how can I go ahead and mark them. Then what we needed to do is create a form that could capture it. This process turned out to be incredibly valuable, but it took so much work on the back end that we decided that was impossible. So what we did is we essentially built a tool on the front end so that when everybody was taking notes in a call, they could go through and say, that's a thing about my feedback, about my product. That is a pricing comment. This is a go-to-market comment. So it was mainly a frustration that from not being able to answer the questions quickly that we had to kind of solve this problem differently.
All right. Well, we are at time, but we wanted to thank everyone for joining. And if you did send questions that we haven't had a chance to, I'll follow up via email. But we really wanted to thank you for your time. And this recording of the webinar will be on our website as well.
Thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. We will hopefully see you at the party. And if not, we'll see you on the next webinar.
Bye.